What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. So we are now about 2 months into the NHL season. So I thought it'd be a fun idea to, like I usually do every 2 to 3 weeks, throw it over to you guys to send me some of your hot takes over on my Instagram and Beyond Hockey. Go follow it. I post a lot over there as well. But yeah, we are going to hear from you guys some hot takes, whether it's awards, whether it's teams making the playoffs, how deep certain teams are going to go into the playoffs. And I'm going to tell you whether or not you are absolutely out of your mind or if I could potentially see it happening. So we got 16 loaded up, and we're just going to dive right into it. Thank you for everybody that submitted it. I appreciate you guys greatly. Up first from Aaron Curran, 0. He says Hudson for Calder. Now, when looking at Hudson, he's having an amazing season. He is having an amazing season that in other years could potentially win the Calder. If he was in Matty Beniers as well as that 2023, yeah, he'd probably win the Calder that season. The only problem is he's going up against the consensus number 1 and number 2 prospects in hockey heading into the season, and Macklin Celebrini and Matvei Michkov, who have lived up to the hype. And Michkov's around point per game, Celebrini's around point per game, and like over half a goal per game. I just don't see Hudson being able to overtake that unless he gets thrown on that top power play and goes nuclear and finishes with like 60 to 65 points. I think Matvei Michkov likely at this point going for north of 70 points, 75, maybe even 80 points is just far too much for Hudson to potentially overcome. Still an amazing season. In like probably 30 to 40% of seasons, he probably ends up winning the Calder compared to other guys, but it's just unfortunate that he's in such a loaded class, and we knew that heading into the season. So although, again, amazing season, his stock is certainly on the rise. In terms of a Calder, I'd say it's like 4 to 5%, which again is insane considering the fact he's on pace for 54, 55 points, but that's just the reality of the situation. Next up from C. Trebby 434, Krill is going to start to mellow out a little, and the Wild fall back into mid and miss the playoffs. In other years, I could maybe see where you're coming from, but this year it just seems like we so obviously have our Western Conference teams, our 8 Western Conference teams. You look at it right now, and they're 9 points ahead of the Calgary Flames, who are the 9 seed right now, and they have a game on the Calgary Flames. Who's going to catch them? Calgary, Utah, Nashville, who we're going to talk about later in this video, that has lost 7 straight. I can't see, now maybe them falling back into wild card spot. I could definitely see. I could see the Winnipeg Jets, Dallas Stars, or Colorado Avalanche catching up to them. And I do agree. Kirill Kaprizov is probably not going to go for like 135, 140 points that he's on pace for right now. But at this point, given this amazing start, given the Western Conference, the Minnesota Wild, they're going to make the playoffs. I'd be willing to bet my life on it. I'd say it's 99% likely at this point. Next up, Carson Humphrey. If the Kings play well, they're cup contenders. I just can't buy it considering their lack of star talent. We have seen it time and time again against the Edmonton Oilers the last 3 years, them kind of progressively fall off, and they have been very good this season. But yeah, I just can't see this team contending at a high level, although they have a lot of very good players like Kopitar, like Kempe, like Fiala. I think at the end of the day, especially in that Western Conference where there is a lot of superstar talent and a lot of very, very good teams, I just can't believe in the LA Kings. Maybe they could win a round if they get matched up against like the Vegas Golden Knights or even the Vancouver Canucks. But in terms of like a deep, prolonged Stanley Cup run, I personally can't see it at this point, although I'll admit I was wrong on the LA Kings. I thought they were going to struggle without Drew Doughty. They've been exceptional to start this season. Jack Colborn says, Natchez doesn't break 90 points. And I think on a last hot takes like 2 to 3 weeks ago, someone said he goes for over 95. I said that he'll go under 95. But at this point, he hasn't really slowed down a ton since that video was made. He has, 42 points in 27 games right now. He only needs 48 in his final 55 to hit 90 points. I think he probably does that. I would agree with I would stick by my original assertion of under 95 points. I think he is going to slow down a little bit. And again, by slow down, I mean still around point per game. But 90 points at this point, he only needs to be like a 70-point player the rest of the season. And I do think that he has made strides in his game, especially his playmaking and his awareness, where he is a very elite player at this point compared to prior years, where he maybe didn't have it all figured out, wasn't as consistent on a game-to-game basis. It seems like he's bringing it every single night and has made adjustments. So as a result, I think Natchez probably is going to hit 90 points. That's not some scorching hot take to say he's going to get below 90 points given his track record, but I personally disagree on that front. Another guy that is not hitting a certain point mark is Wyatt Johnston. This comes from Landell Harvo. Wyatt Johnston won't get 60 points. Now, if you told me this 2 to 3 weeks ago, I'd maybe believe you, considering the fact that he started out with only 7 points in 17 games. I talked about it in the video yesterday, but He has 10 points in his last 10 games. His last 3 games, he has played 20 minutes a night on average. I think he's going to finish low 60s. I don't think he's going to smash it at this point, but I think he's going to continue at a rate around like 0.8 points per game at this point, maybe even 0.9, and probably end up hitting the 60-point mark roughly. Right now, he's on 52-point pace. And again, that was with such a disastrous start. He has to step up, especially with a guy like Tyler Seguin getting hurt. He needs to step up in a big way, and he has in the last 10 games. I think he ends up hitting 60 points. The Devils are not contenders, too inconsistent. And I get what you mean by this, considering they got shut out the other night against Scott Wedgwood in the Colorado Avalanche. I believe they've been shut out 5 times this season, which is pretty shocking. I can definitely agree that if you don't have them in like your top 5 contenders, but I still think there isn't really a premier team in the Eastern Conference at this point. It's not like Florida is yet again asserting themselves on the Eastern Conference. So I think that they're definitely somewhere in the contender mix. I'm probably a little bit higher on them than others, but I can understand why you definitely have them in the second or third tier. Outside, I can't see you saying that they don't have like a top 10 chance to win a Stanley Cup this season. I think you'd be a little bit absurd for that, but I definitely understand why you might be a little bit lower on the Devils than me. Sticking with the New York City metro area, Rangers missed the playoffs from real estate with Ian F. I don't agree with this right now, but the way that it's trending, I 1000% understand where you're coming from. They've lost like 8 out of their last 10. Yesterday, they blew a 3-1 lead to the Seattle Kraken, ended up allowing 7 goals. One of those was an empty netter. But yeah, they're 14-11-1 right now. If the other Eastern Conference teams that we thought were going to be playoff contenders, like the New York Islanders, Buffalo Sabres, and Ottawa Senators, were on top of their shit, I maybe even would agree with you, but those teams have been slacking a decent amount where it's going to be a little bit tough to catch the New York Rangers. And I think Drury showed that he's going to be ultra aggressive in terms of getting this team back in some type of contention by trading away Jacob Trouba. It's not like they're like trading away Jacob Trouba. We're just going to sit on his $8 million as that accrues. We're not going to do jack shit. There are clearly massive moves coming for the New York Rangers. They definitely need to start playing better. If they continue at this rate, they will miss the playoffs. But again, the Eastern Conference past the top 8 right now kind of is a total shit show. So I think that they still make the playoffs, unfortunately. Next up, Lowry 17. Leafs tandem will stay hot and they will win the Atlantic. And yeah, their tandem of Joseph Woll and Stolarz has a 921 this season. By the way, on the podcast, like first week, I had a hot take that they were going to be top 5 in save percentage in the season. Got to take your W's when they come. I don't think they're going to keep up this level of play. They've been arguably like the best tandem in the entire NHL. But yeah, this tandem, there's no elite starter, although Stolarz has played like that this season, but they just have 2 very, very good goaltenders, and I do think that they might end up winning the Atlantic Division. I picked them at the start of the season, and I would pick them right now to win the Atlantic Division, considering that defense core has stepped up in a big way. And yeah, last year, the goaltending was very shaky with Samsonov, and Woll just kept on getting hurt. Martin Jones had to like stabilize the situation for 2 weeks. That's how desperate they were, and it seems like now, as long as Woll can stay healthy, they're going to have a top 10 goaltending tandem the rest of the way. It's actually been the forward core, the goal scoring that has got to let them down. And I think that definitely will eventually figure itself out. So yeah, I like this tandem a lot. I like that take a lot. It might not even be that much of a hot take considering aren't they in the driver's seat for the Atlantic Division right now? But yeah, just wanted to mention that I said they were going to be top 5. Next up, Matt Fruling says Quinn Hughes wins back-to-back Norrises and is the undisputed number 1 D-man in the league by the end of the season. And if this scenario plays out like that, like I think it might right now, he would be my Norris pick. I'd agree with you. I probably would agree with you. If Quinn Hughes wins back-to-back Norris trophies, I got a lot of flack because I kept Adam Fox ahead of Quinn Hughes at the end of last year, just because it was Quinn Hughes' first season since their rookie years that he was better than Adam Fox. I wasn't quite ready to put him over Adam Fox, and obviously not Cale Makar either. But if I get back-to-back, if I see back-to-back seasons of Quinn Hughes winning the Norris and winning pretty easily, although Cale Makar is having a very good season as well, yeah, I think you kind of got to put him as the best defenseman in hockey. I think that would kind of be consensus. Although he probably will never hit the peak of 2022 Cale Makar when he had 86 points in like 77 games, then 29 points in 21 playoff games. You'd have to give the title to Quinn Hughes, especially because Cale Makar's underlying numbers last year and this year as well have kind of been pretty underwhelming. So it's not even like Cale Makar missed 10 to 15 games, didn't win the Norris, but on a per game basis, he was as good, if not better than Quinn Hughes. Quinn Hughes has objectively been better than him, the last 110 games of regular season hockey. So yeah, I get where you're coming from, and I would agree with you if Quinn Hughes ends up winning the Norris, or even if I think Quinn Hughes should have won the Norris, I might make that switch in terms of my defenseman rankings in the NHL. From Grammy Barry 99. Sorry if I'm botching your name. Marner does not re-sign with the Leafs. And this is a tough situation because I don't know if I can see him walking. I think that they would have traded him this most recent offseason if they were going to move off him, just letting him hit the open market. And then, yeah, you'd have 12, $13 million that you planned on spending to re-sign Mitch Marner to do in free agency. But the free agency classes, as we've seen in prior years, a lot of those deals end up being total crap. And Marner is playing so good where I think that he's probably going to trick Brad Treliving into re-signing him and then having some kind of bad playoffs. So at this point, I think Marner still is going to be a Toronto Maple Leaf. I'm not saying it's not impossible. If they hold out all the way past the playoffs and he shits the bed again, maybe they just say, we see you later. It just hasn't worked out in terms of you being a core piece, in terms of this core winning in the playoffs. But I'm definitely still on team Marner's going to get re-signed, considering they're just not going to let him walk for absolutely nothing. Next up, Will Sibald says the Avs are now a top 3 team in the league. And yeah, this is obviously sparked by them just trading for Mackenzie Blackwood. And when looking at the Colorado Avalanche's underlying numbers, they're not quite top 3, but they're pretty impressive. They're in terms of 5-on-5 expected goals percentage, they're 6th in the entire NHL. All situations, that's 7th. So if Blackwood can be a top 15 goaltender in the entire NHL, I'd agree that this team is probably, considering they have that superstar talent, top 6 in the NHL in terms of my teams that could potentially win the Stanley Cup. I don't know if I would quite go top 3, but again, I don't think that there's any super team this season, so I definitely get where you're coming from top 3. The thing is, Mackenzie Blackwood isn't this sure thing. That I think that's what people are overlooking. He has been very good the last few years for the San Jose Sharks, but the Devils traded him for a reason a couple of years back and only traded him for like a 6th-round pick, or maybe they even traded a 6th-round pick to dump him. Mackenzie Blackwood, although an upgrade, is by no means the most consistent goalie in the entire NHL, and we got to see how he plays to start out for the Colorado Avalanche. Next up, from Malmer Hajik, again, sorry if I'm botching your name. New York Islanders make the playoffs as the wild card too. Palmerian Nelson, 35+ goals. It's possible. I'm not saying it's not possible, but again, they're going to have to either jump the New York Rangers, Tampa Bay Lightning, or Boston Bruins. Boston Bruins have been playing lights out hockey, especially of late. The special teams need to improve. The stat that popped up last night is they have the worst power play and the worst penalty kill in the entire NHL. You can look at that and say, that's just not going to improve. They are that bad, or it might improve marginally. Or you could say it can only go up from here. It's going to go up 5 to 10% in each category. I think it's going to improve the overtime losses. They've not been blowing as many leads of late. I think they're going to start playing better hockey, but will it be enough to catch one of those teams? At this point, I'd probably lean towards no, unfortunately. Maybe Lamoriello pulls off some massive trade, and that changes my opinion in terms of this season, not the long-term future of this team. But right now, I definitely think that they're on the outside looking in, but I do think they have a better chance than Ottawa, Buffalo, Philadelphia, or Columbus or something like that, just because, again, they think things can only go up in terms of special teams. They have an elite goaltender. They have so many injuries that they're still dealing with. People are still not recognizing that Pellick, Barzell, Duclair have been out all like a month at this point. So yeah, there's definitely some optimism for this team to potentially turn it around, but they're underdogs in terms of making the playoffs. Ben White 305 says the Stars are overhyped, very average decor, underwhelming star forwards, and a decent goalie. And I agree. Right now, I agree in terms of the star forwards. That is why they have been so underwhelming to start. I don't know if I would quite go overhyped. If Robertson and Hintz don't turn it around, I agree that this team is potentially a first-round exit in the Central Division, if not a second-round exit. I don't think there's a ton of hype around this team. I guess that's where I'm coming from. I feel like people have realized that these guys are slow, that have had such a slow start, and as a result have kind of pulled back their expectations in the Stars. I bumped them from a tier 1 contender down to a tier 2 recently. They're still a good team. Again, the defense core is scary considering Tanev out, Lyubushkin and Dumba in. But this is still a team that doesn't have any massive weaknesses like some other teams are talking about. They have basically everything. The forward core, I think, is still deep. The Sagan injury definitely scares me a little bit because he might miss the first or second round. But yeah, I can see that perspective if you like some other teams in the Western Conference, but they're definitely still a proven team. Again, back-to-back Western Conference finals where they're a serious threat come playoff time. But I definitely understand if you have them as like the 4th or 5th biggest threat in the Western Conference, I'd probably still have them at 2 or 3. But yeah, Robertson and Hintz definitely need to step the hell up. Sack Sports Card says the Lightning are better than people think. And I agree. This team could be a dark horse team. This probably would be my dark horse team to come out of the Eastern Conference right now, considering Vasilevsky is looking more so like his prior self compared to his 2024 self. Gensel has obviously been very good. Hagel's playing out of his mind. Point has like 18, 19 goals, as well as Ryan McDonough being a massive ad, getting him back in the mix. JJ Moser solid as well. So yeah, I think that definitely not like, again, a serious contender, but this is a team that nobody would want to see in the playoffs, and rightfully so. And then lastly, we have Cole Caufield finishes top 5 in the Rocket. Not Rocket voting. There's no Rocket voting, but this comes from Shane07. When looking at this, I think I could get on board with top 10. Top 5 is just a little bit too tough for Cole Caufield. When looking at it, I expect Draisaitl, Kaprizov, and yes, Austin Matthews, even though he has 8 goals. I would bet a lot of money on them finishing ahead of Cole Caufield. And then you got other guys like Braden Point with 18 goals, Ovechkin with 15, Sam Reinhart 19, McDavid 13, Rantanen 15, that I also would bet, not as much money, but I would bet on finishing ahead of Cole Caufield. I think he's probably going to finish around 42 to 44, 45, maybe even goals this season, which again will be a monster season. But in order to be top 5, you probably got to be 48 plus. When looking at recent scoring trends, he's playing great, but he does have 17 goals despite shooting like 25-ish%. So it's not quite sustainable what he's doing right now. And I know he's on pace for like 55, 60 goals right now. So obviously that's not that sustainable. But yeah, I think Cole Caufield ends up mid to low 40s in top 10-ish. If that makes sense. I can't quite go top 5, although I'm sure Canadiens fans would love to see that. But let me know in the comments. What do you think about this video? What takes do you think were half decent and could potentially happen? Which ones were absolutely insane, like the New York Islanders making the playoffs? Let me know in the comments. What do you think? And I'll be seeing you in the next one.